Welcome to Shouting from the Couch. My name is Nick Yale, and these are three guys I found through a long online search process. This is going to be our very first podcast. You guys want to go around and introduce yourself real quick?
Sure. I'm Jacob Kornhauser. Chris?
You sound like you had more to add. I'm Chris Turner. I'm going to leave my sentence at that.
Yeah, I'll be Tyler Murray, I guess.
Like I said, I'm Nick Yale. And how this is basically going to work, it's going to be a weekly podcast for all you viewers of Videocast. Or a podcast. We'll see how this works out throughout the process. But we're basically just been talking all things sports. You know, it's shouting, not spoken. That's what we're going for.
Yeah, there's a lot of yelling.
A lot of yelling. So this week, on this episode, we're going to be talking about college football, everything from the ACC to the Pac-12 to the SEC, who we think is going to be in the college football playoff, we think who's going to be snubbed. Plus, we got some great new segments that we're going to be introducing. So we'll just break it down, get right down to it. ACC predictions. What are you guys thinking?
Well, let's start off by division. I'll go with the Atlantic first. Obviously Clemson, Florida State are kind of the cream of the crop there. Kind of them and everyone else. So when they play each other, I see that as almost like a quarterfinal game for the playoff. They'll have to win the ACC as well. And then the bottom is just really, really bad. So they're going to beat up on teams. And then the Coastal, I've got Miami winning that, kind of returning to prominence. Mark Richt, I think, returning to his alma mater, going to do a good job with the Hurricanes.
Talk about Mark Richt. It's not the U part 3 just yet, but I think it's definitely a prologue. They have a lot of talent. Brad Kaya, one of the best quarterbacks in the country. Got Joseph Yearby, Stacy Coley, a lot of the most athletic guys in the ACC. North Carolina is another team that I think is going to make a lot of noise too. Larry Fedora almost was on the hot seat at Carolina. And he rips off 10 wins last year, gets to the ACC championship game. So don't be surprised if Carolina makes more noise this year.
Yeah, I think what you said about Fedora, North Carolina, I have them second in the Coastal. I think they're going to make some noise this year. Again, 10 wins last year. Similar, top Clemson, Florida State. That's almost got a playoff type feel for it. Deshaun Watson, though, I think is it's the difference maker. I have Clemson being not only the best team in the Atlantic, but best team in the ACC as well.
I really don't think you can compete with Deshaun Watson and Clemson at all in the ACC. Yeah, I am interested to see how Miami does. And they got Craig Kuligowski, all we know, is the Missouri guy as their new D-line coach. So it should be interesting to see how that works out. We'll move on to the Big 12 now. Big predictions, Tyler. Who are you thinking for Big 12? Oklahoma? They're gonna.
It's not a big prediction. It's Baker Mayfield. He's one of the most talented quarterbacks in the country, and him and Deshaun Watson are probably going to be two of the big Heisman. We're going to go into that a little bit later, but two big Heisman finalists. And you look at what Oklahoma did last year. They came up short, of course, but blown out.
So we're not investing a lot into Kansas.
That's what I was.
Yeah, Kansas with a lowercase K.
With a lowercase.
In a doing pretty well at one win.
That means David Beatty gets a win. David Beatty getting a win would be probably the biggest upset this entire year, bigger than an FCS or FBS school. But I like what you said about Oklahoma. Baker Mayfield, it's easily one of the better QBs in the country. Samaje Perine, one of the better running backs in the country. Joe Mixon as well, terrible human being. But pretty decent running back. And it's all the Bucs cares about. But Oklahoma, definitely one of the more capable teams. Probably going to make a good run at the playoff if they can get through TCU.
Yeah, well, they're clearly the most talented team. That obviously doesn't always translate. But I wanted to say, Kansas last year, they were getting 59 points against TCU. 59 for the betting line. They did not cover.
Is that bad?
They lost, I believe, by 65. They did not cover the 59-point spread that they got. That's just a mark of, and they're not going to be any better this year. I do think Texas will be a somewhat surprising team. I have them finishing third in the conference. I think Charlie Strong, he's on the hot seat. His team's going to kind of play for him. It takes more than that. Yeah, he is. We don't know who's going to be playing quarterback there quite yet, but I think they've got plenty of solid options. So
no one has mentioned
Baylor.
That's
the most interesting team to watch in the country. Jim Grobe coming basically out of obscurity before his time to Wake Forest. No one really knows where he's been. Now he's back at Baylor in a very sensitive situation, and he has talent. Seth Russell, very good QB, coming off an injury, but. In a Big 12, they're getting overshadowed when they're usually in the spotlight.
Yeah, I think everybody's looking at Oklahoma, everybody's looking at TCU, but Baylor could sneak in there. A lot of their talent, and with all the off-field issues they've had this past season, I think people were kind of throwing them on the bus, expecting them to fail, but they could be right up there.
A lot of their talent switched to Texas, which is another reason, flipped their the recruits that had committed to Baylor flipped to Texas. I think they got like 4 of the top recruits. So that's another reason I think that was kind of shifting the balance of power in the Big 12 a little bit.
All right, moving on. We'll move on to the Big Ten. Predictions, Chris, start with you.
Michigan. I think Michigan is a team you should invest heavily in this year. I think this is the year they get over Ohio State, too. JT Barrett, obviously, I talk about a lot of better quarterbacks. He's been very consistently one of the better quarterbacks in the country, the past 3 or so years. But Michigan bringing back a lot this year. If they can figure out their quarterback situation, it's going to be John O'Korn or Shane Morris. And you got Jake Butt, best tight end in the country, probably will win the tight end award this year. And then you have Jabril Peppers, one of the best 5-star recruits a couple years ago, one of the best defensive players in the country. I think everything's going to come together for Jim Harbaugh this year.
And you're going to still see him offensively. Michigan's going to use more. He's almost like a Miles Jack type of talent, just physical freak. He can do it all. Michigan's it's the cream of the crop. And it's, again, very top-heavy, I would say. You got probably the top 3 again this year. Michigan, Ohio State,
Big Ten East
Michigan
is
State.
ridiculous now, like in terms of Big Ten East versus Big Ten West.
Exactly, and then you look at the bottom of the Big Ten, and it can get pretty gross.
Well, we'll discuss that more in our Purdue podcast.
Yeah. Well, we have a whole 30 minutes dedicated.
It's mainly just Neil Armstrong, Drew Brees,
Kyle Orton is not walking through that door, so they're going to win about 2 games.
Daryl Hayes was going to get fired. I will guarantee that right now.
Purdue,
This year he's
Illinois,
gone.
Northwestern, Rutgers.
Illinois, I will say this, they're not going to make a bowl game this year, but Lovie Smith is probably one of my favorite hires this past offseason.
Yeah.
Give him it a few years.
He'll
turn them around to we're not 2005 levels where they're going to the Rose Bowl, but they will definitely be a consistent team again.
And this was probably my least favorite division. The Big Ten West is just it's disgusting.
It's pretty bad.
But you also understand we've watched the SEC East the last 2 years.
Yeah, I have Iowa, but I don't see them as a division.
They're the best of a bad season.
Wisconsin's got
They might be a 9-game division winner. Is what I see in Iowa.
Top road games.
Because they'll beat up
Nebraska is.
I see Nebraska being okay.
Mitchell Summers, he'll be on. At some point.
Hi, Mitchell.
They're a destined 7-5 team every single season, 8-4. It's.
Minnesota's a middle of the road team. They just lost to Jerry Kill as their head coach. Tracy Claeys is the new head coach. So really, the Big Ten West is just beat each other up, and whoever's the last man standing, congrats. You get to go to Indianapolis and get pummeled by Michigan or Ohio State.
Yeah.
Let's move on. Pac-12, a little bit more interesting conference.
A little bit more exciting. For the North, I have Stanford winning again. And this is another, it's them, maybe Oregon, but I don't really. Oregon's going to take a step down, I believe. And then the rest of that division is pretty terrible. In the South, I have UCLA. I think Rosen takes that next step up. He can run a pro-style offense as a sophomore, which is very, very rare. And then, Utah and USC, I could see those two maybe competing in that division, but those bottom 3 teams, I don't see that they have the same depth that a UCLA or a Utah has.
The second I saw Josh Rosen as a freshman got a hot tub into his dorm, I knew for a fact this guy was destined for greatness and will more than likely win the Heisman. UCLA, they obviously lost, Miles Jack, one of their best playmakers last year, but this team is loaded. If they beat Texas A&M pretty handily week 1, I'm pretty comfortable saying they win the South. You talk about Oregon, unless Dakota Pruitt, the transfer from Montana State, turns into a Vernon Adams type player, I don't see Oregon, making a run this year. They'll probably win, Mark Helfrich, great coach, 8 or 9 games, I would probably say. Watch out for Washington. I've never seen a 7-6 team get hyped up through the roof like this.
They should be.
And Budda Baker is one of the best true college juniors in the country, and will definitely be a high draft pick here next year. I think.
Yeah, and don't forget about Jake Browning. One of the best sophomore quarterbacks in the country. One of those up and coming talents who I think we're going to be saying if he stays all 4 years, might not happen, but 16 touchdowns, just under 3,000 yards last year. Pretty good performance from a team that didn't have a ton of pieces to work with. I think you could see a big jump from him, and obviously Josh Rosen is the cream of the crop quarterback wise, but don't sleep on Jake Brown.
All right, we got SEC. Last one, biggest one,
the biggest, the best,
the biggest, the best. It'll be the talk of the town. What are you thinking? SEC East and then SEC West. Start out.
I have our wonderful Missouri Tigers finishing 4th. Very, very average out there in the East.
Real quick, win total. You got to give a win total as well.
I'll say we win 6. I'll say 6.
I'm sorry, did you say we?
We?
The Missouri Tigers will win 6 games.
Hauser's a bit
Missouri Tigers will win 6 games.
Are you a walk-on this year?
I'll put them at 7.
I think 6 or 7 is
I think they can get 7.
Definitely that range. I don't think they're going to win less than 5 or less. I can't.
Took a little hit to the D line with some
Off the
Dismissals.
field.
Off the field. And what
Failing
else
to
is new?
meet academic expectations.
What else is new?
Harold Brantley.
Violation of team
all he
rules.
was doing was going to school after a car accident and not playing.
You
Couldn't
had
figure
one
it out his
job.
grades, so.
Do your job.
Come on, man.
But
we
anyway,
can't use
yeah,
that segment due to copyright, but if we could, Harold Brantley would be our leader on that segment.
Still a deep defensive line.
I'm saying 6. I'm a cynic. Like I want to believe this team can be better. After the offense I saw last year, it's more of the same. Like there's nowhere to go but up. I think in his second year, Drew Lock will show a lot of improvement. He's losing Nate Brown, which sucks. That definitely hurts, losing a weapon like that. He has Jamon Moore, and he has Chris Black. I think having Chris Black is definitely helpful.
Transfers.
And the offensive line's also a big question. Tyler Howell, if he fits in right away, then I feel really comfortable saying 6 wins. But if they show up at West Virginia, I don't think they'll win. But if they keep it close, then I feel comfortable about the season.
If they can compete, that's offensive line. Not a single one of those guys on the offensive line has had starting experience, except for Al Gablen, who started a couple games last year.
When Evan got hurt.
Yeah, when Evan got hurt at center. So he's the only guy that has experience there, but that offensive line's going to determine how that run game is. They got three.
What run game? What run game? Really?
They ranked 127th out of 128th in yards per game, or in scoring per game last year. So, but they got Demaria Crockett, Nate Strong, 2 4-star recruits coming in, and Alex Ross, a grad transfer from Oklahoma.
That's the key.
I think they have a lot of talent. They went from Ish Witter to 3 guys that can be started.
That's the key, though. If Ross is good, I mean, you got new recruits. And I wouldn't expect a whole lot. You've got to be able to handcuff if Drew Lock is not, what we think he can be. Drew Lock has shown flashes. He's shown he has some talent. He's also shown that, a couple games, just, 100-something yards.
He shouldn't have played last year.
6 points against Georgia.
Well, it doesn't help whenever your quarterback.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. It was a white powder.
It was a white
For all we know, he could have been snorting like cleaning solution.
No offense.
Or sugar.
With all due respect. Or sugar.
We did, okay, we talked a little enough about the Missouri Tigers. How about the rest of the SEC? SEC East, are we thinking Georgia, Tennessee there?
I got Tennessee. We were talking before, we kind of feel bad picking Tennessee always because I feel like the last 3 years we've been picking Tennessee, but really I do think I saw them against Mizzou last year. They just ran right through them. I think Jalen Hurd is one of the best running backs in the country. Yeah, they left a lot of points on the board too because they let drives stall at Missouri.
Defense wins 5 games.
But yeah, Jalen Hurd, unbelievable talent. He's coming back.
Don't forget Alvin
So
Kamara
I really do think, and it's going to be on Josh Dobbs. If he can become that next tier quarterback rather than a game manager with a little bit more talent than that, if he can really step it up to that next level, I do think that they win the East. And then out West, that is as tough as it gets. I have Alabama and then LSU second. That's another one that we were talking about. It's kind of like a
Did you say Bama
quarterfinal
first?
Yeah,
okay.
and LSU second.
I think we are split on that. Yeah.
Another team I'm interested to see is Georgia. Kirby Smart's first-year head coach. Nick Chubb's coming back. He's losing a couple guys, 2 guys especially to Louisville for transfers on the defensive side. But the question is, what is he going to do at quarterback? Fausto Mbata is a guy who hasn't played a snap of college football. So it's going to be interesting. What is Georgia going to be able to do on offense? I mean, if you have a guy that's just a game manager, Alabama does that every year. Since AJ McCarron, what he was best at Alabama is a game manager. He
But Alabama also has had just impeccable, half their roster is NFL talent. I mean, Georgia just doesn't have that.
Well, all Georgia needs is a game manager, honestly. Kirby Smart doesn't need to win the SEC East in his first year. If he can just win 6 games, which he'll do fine.
Yeah, I mean, they'll win 6 games. I also say don't sleep on Florida. Everyone's got a bad taste in their mouth.
I have them coming in second.
After that terrible Citrus Bowl, I mean, they got destroyed. But it's Michigan again. They still had a successful year, 10 wins, very quietly, I would say. Not really going to go away.
Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's, like I said, we're favoring Tennessee. We favor Tennessee every year. And then,
Florida too.
But then, because nobody
puts Jones on the hot seat if they don't win the division.
If they don't win 9 games, I think Knoxville will revolt and chase Bush Jones out of town.
With the recruits that they brought in.
You have to understand, I compare Tennessee fans to Nebraska fans in terms of rationality. Nebraska fans hired Bill Callahan this was around 2007 or 2008. They fired Bill Callahan for going 9-3. He had like a plus 20 winning record at Nebraska, and they fired him. And they replaced him with Bo Pelini, who they ran out of town for winning 8 games a year. So Tennessee, they had the Derek Dooley era, obviously, which was pretty rough. And Butch Jones has been a very consistent coach. But if they don't win the division with what they have, I would bet that some people are going to be calling for his head.
I mean, that's how it goes in the SEC. If you're not consistently winning, if you're not competing for an SEC championship every year, you're out.
Les Miles, that is the perfect example. For some unknown reason, the guy who is consistently getting like close to the division crown, and he's running into Alabama. If you can consistently get to the top, but you only lose to Alabama, I think you're doing fine for yourself. It took a last week game, I believe it was over Texas A&M, or it might have been Mississippi State actually, to keep his job. Then I don't feel comfortable about this season.
That's the thing. I mean, the SEC is the powerhouse conference. It's why it gets all the talk in the town, and because you have to win and you have to compete every single year.
So I actually got a question. Does Kevin Sumlin have a job at the end of this year?
I mean, I think if they win 8 games,
Texas.
Texas.
They're in the NFL.
Yeah.
If A&M wins 8 games, I think he's safe.
Sumlin's an interesting coach to me because he's had a lot of talent. We talked about Johnny Manziel. Good to see you again, by the way. He seems to have done more, like so much less with what he has. Yeah. So if the question is, I mean, he has a lot of great talent. Ricky Seals-Jones, Myles Garrett. Mm-hmm. So if I feel like 10 wins is probably reasonable for A&M, it's a very attainable goal rather. But getting a draw in the SEC West with what they have, Alabama, LSU, Arkansas, it makes it difficult to see like A&M. How long do they want to hold on this before they want to make a switch?
We'll see what Trevor Knight is with them.
Well, and it also makes it easier for them with that whole assistant coach thing with the slideshow and everything. He was involved in that Jonathan Martin bullying thing too, so it's like, well, I don't know what Kevin Sumlin was thinking, bringing him on, but.
Hey, there's a lot of questions to be answered there. We went over it. Those are going to be our predictions for this week and for the college football season. But now we got a new segment coming down here. It's called Is That a Yank? What is a yank, you may ask? A yank is a crazy thing, an outrageous thing.
Not a baseball player in New York.
Jacob Kornhauser.
If
you say something that's outrageous, he'll literally just come, is that a yank?
You want
a yank?
I think you should do it.
Is that a yank?
There it is. It's patented. It's much more emphatic than that.
We're going to have that at the beginning.
We'll be selling ringtones of that for 99 cents.
That's each segment. So Is That a Yank is going to be a story from the week, a crazy sports story that we're going to discuss. And this week's sports story is Leonard Fournette. Some people, some experts, you could say, some analysts are saying that he should sit out the season, and forego a Heisman candidacy to go in the NFL and be 100% healthy.
Dumb as hell.
Do you guys? Does anybody agree with this?
No.
Anybody agree with this?
I equate this to when remember like Steven Strasburg, I equate the same thing. Just you have no evidence. You have no evidence that this guy's gonna be like Are you not trying to win a national championship? Like,
exactly. They were right there. They're right there with
the Nationals.
Not about the national. If Fournette chose to do this, say he did this, and then he ends up getting drafted, the next time he will play a down of full contact football will be 2 years after his last snap.
What team is going to do that? Just absolutely character assassinations for not playing his senior year, and he didn't even, or his junior, whenever he came out. If you sit out the whole season, what are teams going to say about your work ethic?
Exactly, because the thing, it's all about money. You want to be a high pick in the draft. Okay, so you get hurt. Say you play, you get hurt, your stock goes down. That's an if. You have no idea. But if you sit out, that calls into question character, calls into question work ethic. Does a guy like football? You get that nonsense, which may not have merit, may have merit. But regardless, that for sure will drop your draft stock. Mm-hmm. So you're saying, okay, let me for sure drop my draft stock, all of the case of maybe staying healthy, or I, go out and do what I actually am trying to. Trying to stay safe in football.
It's selfish. I mean, what does that say to your teammates at LSU, to the fan base? Say, hey,
win a national championship.
Sorry, I'm
the reason you go to a place.
Sorry, I'm going to sit out. I mean, what does that say to all the fans and everybody that wanted you to go there in your whole recruiting process? That you're just going to be selfish and sit out just to play in the NFL for a couple extra bucks. You ask any one of those guys, any one of the analysts nowadays that played back in the day that suffered through the concussions and didn't go through any of that safety stuff, absolutely they would be out. Absolutely they would be out there. It's on the phone right there. But yeah, you ask any one of those former college football stars, they would be out there busting their butts left and right to play.
Well, I think Max had an opinion on that.
Call Max back up.
And also just like legacy. Look at all the great running backs that not only LSU has produced, the SEC's produced. He's got a chance to break a lot of Kevin Fox records. He's got a lot of chance to really cement himself.
Put himself with the guys like the Herschel Walkers, the Bo Jacksons, Darren McFadden's, all those guys.
Exactly. Darren McFadden.
Two-time dope walk. This is a conversation for another day.
NFL Darren McFadden. I have cable.
Yes, it's a
That's
hat.
all we got for Is That a Yank for this week.
Which, in fact, we found out it is a yank.
It is a yank. It is indeed a yank. So we'd like to hear your opinions. Is that a yank about Leonard Fournette? You can comment on our Facebook page, Shouting from the Couch, or you can follow our podcast, our Twitter account rather, SFTC_podcast on Twitter. We're going to take a quick break, but we'll be right back with more Yanks and some more college football talk.
All right, welcome back. Segment 2 underway. We a fairly halfway successful segment 1.
That's generous.
It's generous. We're being generous. But
We still have our health.
we talked a little regular season. Now it's time for what it really matters. It's playoff and bowl season.
Playoffs.
Talking about playoffs.
All right,
All right.
So we're
All right, on that.
Yes.
All right.
Unfortunately, Harambe cannot be in the playoff.
Harambe's
I know
in my Final Four.
it's a little wow. Okay, we'll get to that a little later. But I want to know: do you guys think that the playoffs should be expanded to 8 teams? I know a lot of people want it to 8. Some want it to 16. I think 16 is a bit ridiculous. It's adding. I mean, where do you put those games? Like, where do you find the time to put those games? Me personally, I do think that we'll end up at 8 eventually. Maybe give me 5 conference winners and then 3 at large. That gives some of the teams that maybe slipped in the conference, or even in LSU, if they don't win the SEC West, they can still maybe, if the voters think that they're good enough and have eye test strength schedule, whatever, that they can also do.
So 64 teams with 4 playing games is not an option. Is that what I'm getting out of this?
As much as I would love that war of attrition,
Football,
I think
football in March.
let's just have analysts pick the top 64 teams, and that's the season.
But that means we have to get.
It is just the bracket.
That means we have to get Mark May a vote. I don't want to get Mark May a vote. I think 4 teams is fine right now. It's been 2 years now since this started up, and I think it's been great. Obviously the TV ratings, I think, are the big concern more than the quality of games. If you're working for ESPN, that's why they're moving the dates from around New Year's Eve. Everyone's going out, and I don't want to stay in and watch the games. I want to go out and drink. But I think 4 teams is the most. You can do both. I think 4 teams is the most successful format because right now, out of the Power 5. 4 of them have championship games, and the Big 12 is looking to change that soon, obviously. So that'll throw an interesting fold into that. But I think 8 teams, it gets a little big, and then you have to worry about the players playing 3 games rather than 2, which means more injuries and more fatigue.
Well, do you think that it's easier to differentiate between the 4th best team in the country and the 5th compared to the 8th best and the 9th?
I think that's what
the 8th and 9th blend more.
See, you just go down the slippery slope. We get to 8. I think inevitably there's 2 questions to be answered here. It's going to get to 8. Like, is it going to get to 8, and should it?
Yeah.
Inevitably, it's going to get to 8.
Will,
Money, of course. It's more games. It's more high.
Pretty soon, I think, too. I mean, 3-4 years, I think.
But I don't think it should. I mean, people say the playoffs have been so great, and I think it's better than
much better than a computer spitting out 2 teams.
But at the same time, these games have not been that incredible. At least the first round, like Clemson 37 over Oklahoma 17.
Yeah. Oh, the semifinal games last
Michigan State put up a whopping 0 points. 38 for Bama. Those were everyone was excited for those games. They were not exciting.
But as bad as the semifinal as bad as the semifinal games were, they got the job done, giving us the result of the best game we had last year, which is, in my opinion, Clemson, Alabama.
I agree. So the 14 format is perfect. Yeah. It doesn't stretch the season out too much.
I think you should give it gives a chance when you go to 8. It gives a chance, like an LSU, if they lose that game to Alabama, the chance to play because they probably deserve to be in there. But if they lose a game, forget it. You're done.
But they had that chance against Alabama, so I don't think expanding it to 8 teams gives them another shot.
But I mean, think how fun it would be. So we were talking about Ohio State, Michigan. Let's say loser of that makes it.
Yeah.
Let's say loser of Alabama, LSU makes it, and let's say loser of Clemson, Florida State makes it.
True.
How much better quality of a playoff is that if those?
The only problem is I don't like to stretch how far out the games go between.
True.
When we're playing like
that's so many. You'd almost have to cut a game out of the schedule,
Right,
which
like,
is tough with the divisions.
You have the January. Yes, I understand why they don't want to play the games on January 1st, like you said, because people are doing other things. But when you're playing in like the middle of January, I mean, those teams have been playing since they've been practicing since the spring, so they're pretty much playing almost a year round. These are college kids; they're not professionals. I mean, and they're not getting
as much as
they're not getting any of that money. Yeah,
And I think as much as the playoff has solved certain issues with, the Big Ten or in the SEC, get all this favoritism, Pac-12 as well. Expanding to an 18 playoff, there's still gonna be the jackasses out there that say, Boise State, like, give me just like nonsense like that. That it's like, and then they actually do get in a real bowl game or somehow make Boise State. It's just.
I'm gonna put this Tulane to the college football playoff and take back in my pocket.
It's different when it's the NCAA tournament for basketball when they're playing, on back-to-back days. It's completely different when it's football and they're already playing 10, 12 games, and then you bump that up to 13, 14, 15 for those 8 teams that are in there, or those Final Four rather that are in there. I mean, it's all about, like I said, it's all about dollars. ESPN's gonna do it. ABC's going to do it for the money. That's money talks. They're not going to care about what the players think if they have to play more games. It's going to get to 8. Should it? Like I said, probably not, but I think it gives teams a chance.
The beautiful thing about the NCAA is it has the greatest business, the NCAA and ESPN rather in this scenario, the greatest business model. You make billions of dollars hand over fist, and you don't have to pay the employees a cent.
Yep. And you don't have to care about them at all. What happens to them. What their academics are doing, it's just all about.
They can blame the NFL and say it's there for that.
Yeah, exactly. It's their fault.
You take this child, we do not want him.
Yeah, we talked about so we got the college football down, or the college football playoff down. There's 2 teams that are coming back, could come back to their great standing. That's Texas and Miami. What are you guys thinking? Do you think Texas or Miami returns to prominence? We'll start with Tyler and Texas.
Yeah, okay, Texas. I mean, I think it's inevitable that both of these teams, first of all, are going to eventually get back to prominence. I think there's just this ebb and flow of, teams going to go down and then they come back up. Charlie Strong is not the guy to do it, though, in Texas. I don't think, I thought it was that higher in the beginning. I think, they needed someone more, in a transitional role, not somebody that is, they thought was the guy. I just didn't think, I think he was perfect for Louisville. He was perfect for that system, that type of recruiting level. I don't think he has what it takes at Texas. So I don't think he's the guy, but I do think Texas is going to be a better team. Maybe 8 wins this year, and that's a successful season for most teams, not Texas terms by any means. But if you're a Texas fan recently, maybe you have to accept that. As for Miami, I think they're on a little bit higher. They're a little bit more ahead of the curve in terms of Texas. Mark Richt, I think, is a great hire. Again, recruiting. I think Miami's a little bit more ahead of the curve. I think both will eventually return to prominence.
I'm still on Flight Tracker Weekly, seeing if any of Nick Saban's planes are going to Austin. I think I disagree with you. I think Lane Kiffin is in the middle of nowhere, Alabama right now, recruiting and tweeting out Bitmojis.
Tweeting at recruits.
But I'll disagree with you on one point. I think Charlie Strong, I think it wasn't the most, I guess, beautiful hire for Texas. I mean, I'm sure a lot of the alums thought differently. Everyone wanted Saban. Yeah, but I think for the situation Texas is in right now, they're not going to be like blowing out Oklahoma or running over Kansas State like they did back in the old days. I think for the role that he's in right now, I think he'll do fine. I think 8 wins is probably good. They're a dark horse Big 12 contender. If enough dominoes fall, they can make a move and maybe end up winning the conference.
I know we got to keep moving, but. The problem, I don't have a problem with Charlie Strong as a coach. I have a problem with the direction from above. They want, you got to transition the team. We understand you're not going to be as good, but we need to sell out seats. We need 10 wins. We need to compete with Oklahoma. Like it's like, what do you want the guy to do? And I don't think he's equipped to be.
He's put in a losing situation.
Exactly.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think he can coach himself out of it.
Yeah.
But I think it's a very tense situation.
I don't think he's the guy that can handle both of those.
And moving on to Miami, like I said, I do really like the Mark Richt hire. I was kind of pulling for Butch Davis to come back and give it another run at Miami because that would have made perfect, for the storyline. But hiring an alum and a former quarterback, having a former quarterback coaching a guy who could be one of the best quarterbacks in the country, Brad Kaya, with fantastic skill positions all around. Joseph Yearby, Stacy Coley. If Miami beats Florida State and then goes on to win the ACC, I think Mark Richt is going to be there for a long time in Coral Gables.
And I can just bow down. I kind of agree with Tyler's point too. Texas is getting there. I think they'll take the next step this year. But Miami, I think, is almost already there, partially because their division is so weak.
Trash.
But really, though, there's nobody. Pitt, I could see being
UNC's
okay, and UNC's all right. But yeah, they're a product of that. If Texas was in that type of division, I think maybe they take a bigger step. But yeah, I think Texas is still a year or two away from us being able to say they're back to prominence.
So we got Miami, probably just because they're more on a weaker conference.
Yeah.
Texas, maybe not. Question mark on Charlie Strong. He's on the hot seat right now. But they could come back. There's Big 12's not a powerhouse, but there's a lot of good teams. Oklahoma State, KU, not really.
Lowercase K.
Lowercase K. Coming up, though, we're going to talk.
We're not talking about college basketball. Why are you talking about Kansas?
The K, Kansas. No,
Kansas football. I'm sorry. My bad. Sorry. Wait, they're fielding one this year?
For sure, Vegas has 1.5 wins, and that's generous.
1.5.
That is generous. Yeah.
Is that Chris Torino's pigskin preview? And Hickman versus
Having the
Kansas
QBs
City.
at 3-7.
There it is. We're going to come up. When we come back, we're going to be talking the Heisman as well. We'll give you our final 4 college football playoff picks. You're watching Shouting from the Couch. Shouting, not spoken. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. All right, final segment, and thank God we're almost done.
Yeah, I just want you
Anyone
all.
who's still
Let's
watching,
just
I
never
kind
do
of
this
question
again.
I want you all out of my house as soon as possible.
Yeah, I was gonna say our moms are the only ones who will still be watching this.
My mom doesn't have Facebook, so I assume she'll just watch it on Foursquare. She's the mayor of
Do you
Foursquare.
think we have enough characters for a tweet and put it? Will this fit this 45-minute podcast?
Well, we have 4 characters right here. Am I right, fellas?
Chris with the deck. All right, get right into it. Deshaun Watson, though. Deshaun Watson. We talked a little bit about it. Everyone knows I have a Nick Chubb for Deshaun Watson. But Deshaun Watson, is he Heisman caliber? I'm gonna say he is.
No, we're keeping that in.
No, I'm gonna say he is. Okay. So look, if Clemson had beaten Alabama, we'd be talking about Deshaun Watson's performance.
Yes.
You'll make it through the segment. We'd be talking about his 4 touchdowns, 405 yards. We'd be talking about as one of the greatest quarterbacking performances in a national championship.
By far, yeah.
And it still was even in a loss.
He was remarkable. And is there any reason to believe that he's not going to be that much better this year with another year under that offense, another year bigger, stronger, smarter? He didn't have the greatest performance, I think, in the Orange Bowl. Just over 50% completion percentage, but they didn't need to. Oklahoma got stomped. You look at the schedule. Other than the Florida State game, it's ACC. It's pretty smooth. I think there's definitely some other players. Leonard Fournette, if he plays.
If he decides to play.
Yeah, Josh Rosen, Baker Mayfield. There's other guys. I'm not gonna.
Should have won it.
I'm not gonna be that guy, that jackass that says, "Oh yeah, he's gonna be the Heisman winner." I'll predict that. Yeah, I think he's going to win the Heisman, but you never know at this point.
It's such a storyline.
I'll give a very 1 foot in of the door, 1 foot out of the door. Yes, he's gonna be the Heisman winner.
Easily the odds-on favorite. Returning, he's got so many weapons coming back, especially Mike Williams coming back from an injury from 2015. He's the easy pick, but as Court mentioned, you cannot count out Christian McCaffrey.
Yep.
They're returning enough weapons for him to be a threat in the return game, in the running games, and in the receiving game. He'll definitely probably put up similar numbers. I would not be surprised if he bettered those numbers this year too.
What about we look always, you see the early favorites for the Heisman. What do you guys think about a sleeper pick? Because it seems like a lot of times all the guys that are in the Heisman watch, maybe only 1 or 2 of them is there at the end of the season, and you have a couple guys emerge throughout the season. Do you have any picks, any predictions on late bloomer, maybe middle of the season that could come up?
Sleeper pick, I think, is definitely Samaje Perine. He's going to be splitting carries with Joe Mixon, I feel like, a good chunk of the year. But, if he has a couple of big games, it's going to be hard to ignore him, especially if Oklahoma's rolling. And Baker Mayfield, he's probably not a sleeper pick, but, it's Deshaun Watson is probably talked about more than Baker Mayfield. So Baker Mayfield, if he can separate himself from Watson, I think definitely either him or Perine will be Oklahoma's Heisman picks.
How often is it not been a running back and quarterback?
The last non-one was Charles Woodson.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's usually
especially for a receiver, you have to just be unbelievable, even to get invited.
Yeah, I mean, Larry Fitzgerald was the last one that really came anywhere near.
Yeah.
And he was incredible for Baylor.
And then if you're on defense, it's nearly impossible. Like the last guy that got invited was Manti Te'o.
Yeah, and before him, Donovan Sue,
Mm-hmm.
who basically almost won that game against Texas in the final game of the season, was incredible. I'll throw another name out there. We haven't talked about Baylor. Seth Russell, though, just talent-wise alone, I don't think Baylor has the talent around him to warrant him maybe getting a Heisman. But I think talent alone, Seth Russell,
if he stays healthy,
is as much of a talent in the college game as any of the names we've been throwing around, Baker Mayfield and Josh Rosen, those type of quarterbacks. I think he would be in that talk if Baylor wasn't,
And you never know. If the injury bug bites one of those favorites, he could be up there as well. I mean, it's all a mystery between injuries and
especially with the Big 12. I mean, after Oklahoma, say Baker Mayfield goes down or something, the Big 12 is wide open. It's Oklahoma, and then there's a lot of scrum there. So.
My favorite pick my favorite sleeper pick is not as much a sleeper pick as I have $5 extra in Bovada. I'm gonna go throw it on him for the hell of it. Kenny Hill. Just for the hell of it, if he were able to replicate some of the things he did for the 3 weeks he was at Texas A&M, 3 whole weeks, if he can triple that and do that for 9 weeks, I think it would be a hell of a story. If he were able to bounce from Texas A&M, go to TCU, and then compete with Oklahoma for a conference title and potentially a Heisman thing.
You never know.
The talent's there. We know the talent's there. That's the hardest thing. You can't teach that.
And the trademark's there, which is more important.
So we got the Heisman. What do you think of the playoffs?
Playoffs, Jacob. I'll let you lead it.
Well, not very original. I got 3 of the 4 teams from last year returning with Bama, Clemson, and Oklahoma, and then I just have Ohio State replacing Michigan State. Michigan State, very good team last year, but they led for a minute and a half of 3 of their wins, combined between 3 of their wins. They're not going to do that again this year. I think Ohio State, it's going to be them or Michigan in the Big Ten. I think Ohio State kind of is going to be upset in the way that because they would have been back there again if Michigan State hadn't beaten them on the late field goal when they were playing them. So I think Ohio State gets back, and Oklahoma, Alabama, Clemson. I'm thinking Bama number 1, Oklahoma number 2, Clemson 3, and Ohio State 4. So that would potentially set up a rematch of the 2014 semis with Bama and Ohio State, which that'd be a fun one to watch.
I'm gonna go Clemson 1, Oklahoma 2, LSU 3, and Michigan State 4.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we're picking the same type of teams. I mean,
the
powerhouse, the positional.
I just don't even like doing I don't even like doing this because it's just you never know what's happening. But I'll flip. I agree with your LSU pick. I think we're again split down the line with LSU sitting over here.
Assuming Fournette plays.
Yeah. Oh, that's a big
if.
Bigger if than it should be for a football player to play football. It's kind of a strange concept. But I have LSU as the 2 seed, Clemson as 1, Oklahoma 3, and Michigan as my 4. But I have Michigan being the 4 just because I think they're gonna lose one of those games to Ohio State, Michigan State. They might be maybe a little bit knocked down for some of them. They might have a weird loss in there.
Well, their strength of schedule
is
nearly as impressive.
Yeah, exactly. So I think Michigan, even though they beat that 4 seed, I don't count them out to win it all.
Great picks, guys, but here's where you're wrong.
Oh,
Purdue.
No.
Kansas.
I really do like Clemson this year, but I think Alabama's Alabama.
Yeah.
You could stick one of us at quarterback, honestly, and Alabama would probably roll to 9 or 10 wins. This year they're going.
I like the trust. I
like to roll tonight. Not just win, but roll.
Like the Tide will, sir.
Roll Tide.
The past 2 years, they've rolled with one-year starters in Blake Sims and Jake Coker, and they might be doing that again this year with Cooper Bateman if he has a big enough year. I think the Tide are the 1 seed. 2's Clemson. Clemson, they have, like you said, Florida State and Miami are the 2 big hurdles in the ACC. If they get through those, they're going to the postseason. 3, I'm going to do Michigan. And we talked about Michigan, Jabril Peppers, Jim Harbaugh, coming back to the college game, one of the best decisions he ever made, and one of the most entertaining figures in college football for my money. 4, I think I'm going to go ahead and do Oklahoma. It's not, a luxurious pick, but they have the talent and the coaching to get back. So I think that Clemson-Oklahoma rematch it'll be Clemson or Alabama and Oklahoma rematch in the semifinal will be definitely something worth watching.
Yeah, and hopefully a little bit closer than 37-17. I was shocked going into that game. First of all, I picked Oklahoma to win it, but I was way wrong. Obviously, way wrong. But I think that'd be a closer game. I'd pay to see that rematch.
All right, there you have it. That's our college football talk for this week. Thanks for watching. Let us know what you think of the podcast. Let us know what you think you would like us to talk about. We can,
or if you want us to stop talking.
Yeah, or if you want us to stop talking.
I get a lot of that.
Download our mixtape on SoundCloud.
But let us know. Let us know in the comments. You can follow us
on
Facebook at Shouting from the Couch or on Twitter at SFTC _podcast. If you'd like to advertise with this great podcast, you never know.
Drive your potential customers away.
Yeah, we would love to have you. You can direct message us on Twitter or on Facebook. We'll probably have some
slide into our DMs, please.
So what Snapchat and Instagram probably coming soon, and on footballs on Saturday we might be breaking in with the Facebook Live updates as well. So let us know, give us your thoughts, leave us comments, and thanks for following. We'll be back next week with some probably professional sports talk, I think is what we're going to move to. Yeah. But looking forward to maybe a little baseball. Looking forward to the college football season, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for joining, guys.
Good night, Columbia.